Welcome, everybody. Thank you for your time today. As DC said, we're going to walk through how to assign and authorize forms and create forms inside the ServiceNow ecosystem, leveraging our applications that are built and certified on the ServiceNow store. So today, we're going to focus on two of the three products that DTech Apps has created on the store. Those products are Doc Integrator and Doc Generator. They actually ship together, even though they're separate products. And inside Doc Integrator, we're actually going to micro focus on a piece of functionality that we call Doc Flow, which again ships inside Doc Integrator. Doc Integrator is our SharePoint integration application that allows you to seamlessly integrate all your SharePoint libraries and files into any ServiceNow application. So the user does not know that the files are living in SharePoint. They look like they live inside a ServiceNow application. And so we're going to talk about the, where forms come from, the old paper forms with the wonderful 3 copies that you pressed hard and it went all the way through. And then Adobe came out with PDF, which was digital forms back in the 90s. And then mid-2000s, we started to have fillable forms. And now we're moving into the world of digital forms with automation and workflow around them. Where we're probably going to get to at some point is AI-driven and blockchain-driven forms. We're not quite there yet. So where we're going to live right now is in the 2020 world, which is creating forms, and those forms that we create are ultimately applications. So when we review some of our customers' forms that they've built. One of our customers tried a .NET SharePoint build, and it took multiple months, spent lots of dollars, and actually didn't launch the form because the user acceptance testing kept failing. Users didn't like it. When they printed it, it didn't look like the actual PDF that was supposed to be, which the government accepted. So ultimately, the project failed. The next application is a ServiceNow built application, which is awesome. The app engine and platform is fantastic to build on. That's what we build on. But the challenge again is you're creating one form with app engine licenses, and you're having to support that application now. And if you want 23,000 of the government forms in the world automated, you'd have to build 23,000 applications, which doesn't make a lot of sense. And ultimately, where we work today is a lot of organizations still email forms around for approval and for processing, etc. Even contractor onboarding is all done through email instead of it being an online form that we can go and fill out. So what we looked at after we reviewed those two customers' challenges is what could we do with our Doc Integrator product and App Engine in behind it. And what we found is that we can create a pretty impressive form in a month to a couple months, and get that thing routing. And that's what we're going to show you today. If you want to put a numerical value on it, there's about 23,000 forms in the government, 11.4 billion hours of paperwork every year filling out those forms. And if you had to monetize it, which the government never does, it's about $397 billion doing paperwork every year inside the government. We want to fix that. So what we've created is a brand new paradigm. What you're seeing is the user interface inside of either an employee portal or a workspace, where we're going to show you the form as the UI. So instead of coming to create a user interface that everyone likes and prints properly, we're actually going to use the form. You don't have to have user acceptance testing of a form that's already been approved by the government. So that's where we started. How do we push the form out and reduce the approval process with digital signatures? How can we provide that single pane of glass that you don't have to leave? So what you see on the left-hand side is all the forms that you might have to fill out. It could be a recertification for an annual cert. It could be a request for training. It could be the fact that you have to approve someone's process that they want, whether it be foreign travel or even the simplest parking request. In the middle, you'll see the form. And on the right-hand side, you'll see the instructions for that form. Typically, when we deal with paper, when we're supposed to be going paperless, we'll get to the PDF that we need to fill out. There's 5 pages of instructions in the beginning, so we print those 5 pages and then follow along so we can fill that out. We want to bring that entire experience into a single user interface, and we'll show you that. So the overall goal is we want to work with existing PDFs that the government have already approved, so there's no UAT. We want to be able to easily create routing workflows and be able to change those workflows rapidly and dynamically. if they need to be. We want to enable the editing and signature. We want to provide full visibility of where in the process your documents are for signature. And we're going to show that to you today. So how are the ways that we kick off a form for approval or for signature? You can build a catalog, which of course ServiceNow does fantastically well. You can fire off an email with a link to the form. An agent can fire it off and trigger the creation of a document from inside any of the ServiceNow applications that are out there, including custom applications that you may have built internal. And then we want to automate possibly automate the initiation by, it's that time of year again, fire off a form for someone to be able to fill in. So what you'll see with David's demo here in a minute is you're going to be able to see on the left-hand side where the workflow is, as far as where it is in the approval process. In the middle, you'll be able to see the form as well. And on the right-hand side, you're going to be able to see the instructions. You'll be able to complete that assignment all within one window. Being able to view and interact with all the different approval processes and tasks. You'll be able to ensure the proper steps are followed. You'll not make a mistake because you didn't you skipped the instructions, and be able to fire that off for the next step in the process. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Schamberg. David, please. Love to see the demo.
All right. So to kick it off, in today's demo, we'll see how employees can automatically populate standard forms and then route for approval and signature. And as John mentioned, many organizations have manual business processes. So these might be through email, even paper and wet signatures, or expensive custom-built solutions with one form. What we're trying to do here is empower customers to replace these processes for any and all forms. So what we're looking at right now is a pre-existing form. So this is what we are going to ingest into DocFlow, or what we call Doc Integrator Enhanced. And there's two pieces to this. So the first part is, if data exists in ServiceNow, such as the name of the person, what department, their phone number, you can auto-populate this form. So that's part one. And most importantly, there's a lot of signatures required for many standardized government forms or standardized forms for you internally. So how can we route these for individuals or groups to sign and push it on to the next person? So as any employee, we want to easily fill out forms and get back to our day-to-day. We're going to be using that DD2875 form that was just flashed up, which is a system access authorization request. Note, we are kicking this off from the Employee Center Pro portal. We're going to see a few other ways to initiate this process, so this is not the only way to do so. So why do people use these end user portals? For any type of request, for looking up, knowledge articles, might be a PTO policy. And what we're going to focus on now is, an employee, this will be Adam, coming into the self-service portal to initiate that system access authorization process. Before selecting into this and filling out the required form, the required information, just note, these are all of the forms that we've automated in this environment. This just shows how easy it is within the last maybe 4 or 5 months. All of these were automated within the system. So we are providing a framework for you to create as many forms as you want, as opposed to creating a highly tailored system for one form. So as we proceed with this system access request, we're prompted with a form asking us for information. So this is, as we all know in ServiceNow, highly configurable. We're going to kick this off for Adam on a specific solution, a certain system that we need access to. So there's two pieces to emphasize here. This employee, Adam, already has a user profile in ServiceNow, so we can not have to manually type in all of that information, It already exists, really saving us time, kind of like when you go to a doctor's office and have to, manually write in the same information for every appointment or every doctor. And also it decreases the risk for data entry errors. And most importantly, this form will now be routed to the appropriate individuals or groups to sign. So for all the review and signature processes. So once we click submit, we'll see how all the magic behind the scenes takes this portal request and routes to the appropriate parties. So what we're looking at right now is the single pane of glass for any approver. So an approver, whether you're an employee, whether you're a manager or executive, you want everything to be centralized, making your life easier. Before we go into this experience, for those that live and breathe in ServiceNow, you can always access the application via their all menu or favorites. For those that are living or not living in ServiceNow, they would receive an email and be prompted into the solution that we're looking at in front of us. Starting from the left and moving to the right side, this is that DD2875 or System Access Authorization request that was triggered a moment ago. You'll see all of the different forms that we have, so we can support, again, any and all of those forms. This is your to-do list, what's on your plate. Also, whether it's individuals or groups, so who's it going to in terms of the chain of command, and also the due date, which these are not always clear in emails, right? Sometimes it's ambiguous. And also, we can talk about this as well. We are very entrenched in the ServiceNow ecosystem as well as Microsoft. So we have the integration with Teams as well, so for communication purposes. And lastly, as John mentioned, the instructions piece. So you can have a 3-page form with 4 pages of instructions. You're scrolling up and down or printing out the instructions and having it by your desk. So this just simplifies that process, and it could be tailored to each route or each person or group in the chain. So now what we're looking at in the middle is the document itself, right? Verifying this is the document that we will be reviewing and signing. Even though it looks like it lives in ServiceNow, this fully resides in SharePoint. So we are leveraging all of the core capabilities of SharePoint, such as versioning, and without having to navigate through the SharePoint experience. So once we click open an app, what will happen is this document is brought down to your desktop. So very easy, that one click. And this is opening in free Adobe Reader. We can support any of the digital solutions of your choice, such as DocuSign or paid Adobe Pro. But many of our customers either are using free Adobe Reader or are navigating from a DocuSign to a free solution. So the first piece to note is, again, Adam already has information in ServiceNow, so its data is taken out of those tables and put into the form in front of us. And lastly, it is routed to each individual or group for digital signature. For those agencies that have PIV or CACs, we can support you for digital signatures for credentialing as well. Note, we do not have to save this and upload it back into the system. All we have to do is mark complete, and what would happen is it goes to the next person or group in the chain. So the key piece to note is this was for one form. What we would also do next is not have to bounce around between email threads and the experience that we're seeing. We can just go down our punch list and knock out all of the forms that we have to do. So this is very key to really any employee or manager, but especially executives that they're using the ServiceNow platform. So now once we mark this complete, this will be routed to the next person or group in the chain, and we can go about all of our business. So we ran through that form a little slower. Now you'll see how quick and easy it is to start that form process all the way to digital signature. We'll skip through some of those, some of the details as we go through this process. What we're looking at right now is the standard employee service portal. Some of you on the line may know of this as the ServiceNow SP portal, so we can trigger it in many different ways. Let's say an employee just completed a course. Now they have to fill out the certification of training form. If you're familiar with, that is the SF-182. So any end user, would come into this portal, generate the form for themselves, in this case, what form it is, and click submit. So the two things again to note, this data already exists, so we don't have to manually add it to the form, and what form will we be routing throughout our chain of command. So hopping into the doc flow experience again, on the left side, all of the forms that we have to sign. So you'll see one of them come in. There we go. As we were speaking, these are all of the assignments. So these are the people, and now we have some groups within this process. So it could be, a group of managers or, HR, executives that need to sign, or any other group. Lastly, on the right, that highly tailored instructions. So again, just like before, one click, opening it up in free Adobe Reader, reading all of the information, right? Just verifying that everything is correct. For this specific form, the info is auto-populated and routed to the supervisor to review and sign. They reviewed all the information. As David, we digitally signed this document. As easy as that, pushing it to the next person in the chain of command and proceeding on with our day. So within probably about a minute and a half, we just initiated a form and digitally signed it.
Can the forms be sent to a group and one of them in the group can sign and the others get ignored?
Yes, so the way it works is it gets sent to a group and someone essentially claims it, and then they digitally sign it, so the other ones wouldn't need to. Exactly.
And are the forms dynamic, like adding additional rows or expanding the text area?
When you said the form is dynamic, are we talking about the PDF in the middle?
Are the forms dynamic?
Would you be able to elaborate on that question?
Yeah, like so the text area in the middle of that form, scroll down a little bit. Like would that text, any of those text areas be expandable? So if I started typing, would it allow us to, put 400 words in a spot that only has 20 word space?
Got it. So we are leveraging the pre-existing form. So however that's set up, that's how we would operate with the form. You can edit, so even without even bringing it down to your desktop, you can edit the form. But in terms of how the form is set up, that is based on just the pre-existing form in itself.
Perfect. If we need to expand on that, we can. Last question, which I cannot answer, is do all end users have to be a ServiceNow user? They do not. They only have to be a doc integrator user, which is our product. So as long as you have ServiceNow an instance somewhere in your environment that we can install to, you can have every employee licensed for doc integrator, and you don't need to have business user or fulfiller licenses of ServiceNow.
And one piece to add to that is we keep talking about Doc Integrator. So that is the suite. So for those customers on the line that do have Doc Integrator, this is just an added bonus that you already are licensed for. So we just saw doc flow forms automation from an end user in a portal in two different portals, but we are based on ServiceNow. We're built on the ServiceNow platform, so we can leverage all of the core capabilities and can begin this process in many different ways. So what we're looking at right now is a standard ServiceNow record. We are within HRSD. And in this case, we receive a request, let's say via phone or email, for someone to apply for telework, right? This is a huge, very relevant situation today. Either, they're trying to work fully remote or in a hybrid environment, so they have to fill out a telework form. What we're trying to do is provide an easy experience for this HR agent to review all of the information, and with one button, without needing to know any technical information, how can we trigger this telework application for this specific person? So we're trying to make it as easy as possible to assist those employees. So for David, we just triggered the telework application. And in a moment, it will populate right in front of us. So this would be, routed to David in this case based on how it's set up, so that they can add any information, how many days they're requesting off, and then ultimately send it to the next person in the chain. Right, a very standard process for applying for telework, right, in order to work remotely. Again, all this information is auto-populated from data in ServiceNow. We review it, amend anything that we need to change, and digitally sign this document, then pushing this to the next person or group in that chain.
So stop there. That's a great example of how managed digital signatures a little better than how the human has to handle it. We, as you saw the button, David hit open in app, which triggers your desktop application, which is where your credentials live for who you are for the signature. We then apply those, and then once you close it, it replaces the file inside SharePoint. So there's no human interaction of having to change the name, change the file name, all the rest of that wonderful stuff. We handle all that for you. But you do have to bring it down, which we call open in app, to allow your credentials to be applied to that document. Hopefully that answered the question for you. But we're a little more eloquent on how we handle the desktop backup to SharePoint.
Yep, and to emphasize that a little more, the document again is always stored in SharePoint. So all of the versioning as well is stored there. So we're not overwriting the file where you don't have access to the previous version. You have the entire version history in SharePoint.
David, this is Rob Joy. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Just to introduce Rob Joy. Rob Joy is our CTO.
We do support using ServiceNow attachments as well. And if there's a question around how we would do that without SharePoint, unfortunately, it's not. Signing inside of the browser is not something that can be supported without storing the certificate, the digital certificate somewhere that the browser has access to. But what we do is we enable managing of the process of getting the signature on the file in a way that gives the end user a very similar experience to what you saw with Open in App when you're using a ServiceNow attachment. So I'm not sure, David, if any of those forms that you have there are ServiceNow attachments, but instead of Open in App at the bottom right, you will get a download button. And when you click on the download button, it comes down to the desktop and the screen changes to say, drop your file here when you're done signing it. And you stay from this screen right in a place where you can just drop the file back on and mark it complete. And we then take and replace the file in ServiceNow. And we keep, so if you have 3 or 4 signatures that are required, keep those versions of that file as you progress through it. And that way, if you needed to revert back for some reason, we are able to move it back and remove a signature and start you at the place where you want it to go back to. So kind of managing how ServiceNow attachments work to keep the end user from having to know that they need to upload the file and, oh, wait, it's the same name. And now I need to delete one of the 2 files with the same name. And, what you would see in a lot of ServiceNow attachment examples. Hopefully that answers the question.
This is, as Rob was speaking, I just brought in one. So this would be the ServiceNow experience, as he mentioned, downloading it to your desktop and uploading it back into the experience that we're looking at. And in terms of making any edits, just one thing to add here. Based on your roles, you can always, reassign someone, change the due date, or if you're already going through this process and you need to revert it back to a previous step, we leverage SharePoint for versioning, so we have that previous version, that data available.
David, a question about installation requirements.
And the question I would have, is this for SharePoint documents or ServiceNow documents?
ServiceNow documents?
Yeah, you install our plugin, which is a ServiceNow app. So our app comes from the store. You install that on ServiceNow. And you don't have to install anything on SharePoint. You do have to configure some settings for permissions, but you don't have to install anything on SharePoint.
And then if you're leveraging ServiceNow docs, is there anything different we have to do, Rob?
Nope, just install our app and that is it.
And we're role based. So you just assign roles to groups, to individuals.
That's correct.
In the first couple parts of the demo, we went through how the application works, how DocFlow works, and the benefits it brings to your organization, but how can you view everything as a whole? Because we're low on time, we'll only show one of the ways to visualize. If you own those DocFlow assignments, those routing, you have the ability to see it from the other screen. If you're an agent, such as an HR agent, you can even view that document and the routes in the case. Many customers ask about visualization. So what we're looking at right now is reporting capabilities. We're going to talk about 3 different things. Again, this is all real-time data being pulled in from DocFlow. So we function just like any of the other applications on the platform. The first view is the holistic understanding of how are we doing across the board, right? Based on individual, based on group, what's overdue. And there's 2 other ways to think about this. So you have things that are assigned to you. So either reviewing or review and signature that you have to do. So what's on our plate and what do we own? So what do other people need to review and sign for us? So we can see, on the reactive side, Joaria and John have overdue approvals, but how can we try to be more proactive of what's upcoming today, what's due this week, and follow up with them as needed so we don't get into the state that we're looking at below. Just to end the demo, and we can take any questions, DocFlow can handle and automate any and all of your standardized forms. So we covered the DD2875, SF182, and a telework application. This works for approval and signature to streamline your process to eliminate the headaches with forms.
One more question, David, to read in the chat box.
Have ServiceNow docs supported signature workflows with both US and foreign entities before?
So combining in like entities, internal and outside. I think my understanding they do a lot through DocuSign. So if you have DocuSign, you can push something out to DocuSign and they track and flow it through DocuSign. You can definitely sign documents on your desktop and upload them into ServiceNow. So that is definitely something that is possible. And ServiceNow is supporting some digital and electronic signature capabilities. You can definitely use like the wet signature type approach if the organization allows that as a verified signature. And they do have the ability to pull a credential from a store. Our experience has been in trying to get all of the credentials pushed into a store is one of the more challenging things because now you've got all those signing credentials available online somewhere.
And to add to that, so if you don't need to digitally sign a document, you just need to review and approve. There's the process is even faster and simpler. So if that is relevant to anyone in the audience, feel free to reach out and we can demo that part as well.
Appreciate everybody for taking a little more than a half hour out of your afternoon to join us for today's presentation. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to contact us at marketing@dtechapps.com.